नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. We welcome you to this English video transmission. Our today's discussion will be regarding the most debated issue among the Muslim fraternity, that is Ahmadiyyat. In today's debate, we shall be dealing with some introductory and basic issues about the Ahmadiyyat. And in this behalf, we are having with us Dr. Numan Malik, retired physician as a pathologist in Mount Carmel Medical Center since 1974, a clinic assistant professor at Ohio State University, chairman of the Medical Advisory Board of Central Ohio Red Cross. For the last 12 years, has been actively involved in the Dawa efforts of MD Anjuman Ishat Islam Lahore, USA, and in this capacity has traveled extensively and has given lectures in universities in places like Istanbul, Greece, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, West Africa, Philippines, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Australia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
We also have with us Imam Amir Aziz, Imam of the oldest mosque of Germany, Masters of Arts in English, certified in Arabic language and Islamic Sharia, certified in professional studies, United Kingdom. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Imam Amir Aziz, who was Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, and what was his mission?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, he was born in 1835 in a small village of eastern India. At that time, India, Pakistan, it was one country, Qadian. So that is why he is mostly known as Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, because of Qadiani is the word of his village, actually Qadian, where he was given this name. And the main issue, first of all, we should know who was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. We have to know the perspective when he was born, when he came, when he started his own mission. At that time, India, Pakistan, which is known as subcontinent, it was under the control of British Empire. So we were colony. And Muslims, they were not only politically dominant at that time in subcontinent, but they were also so have so lack of knowledge about their own religion that they were even dominant by the mostly the priests, and also by the even the Hindu scholars at that time. They were all having a full-fledged attack on Islam. And at that time, there was not a single person. There are certain personalities. We can't give the sweeping statement, but there were a few people, those who were countering those arguments and those objections which were raised against Islam. So at that time, in that situation, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, when he was born, then he actually he studied in not in any university, not in any school, but he had very good teachers. Which at that time it was the custom that all the people, like all the elite of the subcontinent, they used to have their own children. They had the education system that all teachers, they used to come to their homes and they used to teach them. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's father, Mirza Ghulam Murtaza, he was also a landlord of his time. And before that, even before this subcontinent, when it was under the dominance of British rule, there was a Sikh rule, where Sikh has actually a lot of atrocities on the Muslim, which is in the history. One can also go and see what happened in that time. So when British came, they gave a bit of liberty to the Muslims, to the all the religion, and therefore people, they started. There was a debate amongst the religion, a very huge debate. It was not just a common thing, but like everybody was debating, and the Muslims, they were on the weakest apart, because there was nobody to counter the objection raised by those preachers, by the Hindu scholars, by the Christian scholars, and also even Muslim. They were fighting amongst each other. They had a lot of other issues which were sectarian issues were going on. So at that time, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, he started debating with the Christian missionaries, and that is also in the history. Not that, like, I just give you one reference, which is also recorded in the history, that that he was when he debated with a Christian, then he defeated almost every of their. They refuted their argument, defeated them, and Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi, he wrote one of his translation of the Quran, and in that preface he write that Mirza, at that time when Muslims, they were completely defeated by those British by the priest, and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he came forward, and with his argument that Jesus died and he is the promised Messiah, and in this argument he defeated Christian missionaries right from subcontinent till England. Like, this is a big compliment. This is not a common thing that he and that is the person who was against Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. He was not so favor of him. He was not his allies. He was not at all his follower, but he was against him, enemy, and he said that he is the person who defeated these Christian missionaries from subcontinent till England. And then at that time he wrote his first book, Barain Ahmadiyya. Now, this book was actually, when it was published, then one of, at that time he was not against Mirza Sahib, but Muhammad Hussain Batalvi Sahib, who was the leader of the Al Hadith group of school of thought. He wrote a review about his this book, and that review one must read. In the beginning, when even Ahmadis, they don't know, because when I started, we had only very small portion of it. We read this review, that what he wrote about Mirza Sahib, that no one has written book like this in 1400 years. And then when thanks to Mudassar, that he gave me the whole review. This review is more than of 300 pages, and when I read that review, I was amazed to see what he had written. He not only wrote that he appreciated Mirza Sahib, but he countered almost every objection raised against Mirza Sahib. About his, like, I'll just give you one example. I will then share it. This 300 pages review. Every MD should read it. That many people, they raised objection against him, that Mirza Sahib had one or two intuition, which is called ilham in English. So the people, they had that, why here is a person who says that he had communication with God in English, and Muhammad Hussain Batalvi Sahib, he replied to this objection, and it was this, and his reply was so interesting, and that even Ahmadis have never given this reply. He says that his this Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's this intuition in English, this shows his truth, because this man doesn't know the English language, because he was his friend. So he said this man doesn't know English language, and his this what he has written, then it should not be objectionable. Rather, this is this proof that he doesn't know language, and he had this intuition, and whatever he listened or what is written, that ilham, that was. So, like, then he wrote 300 pages review. That is also in the history. So in this way, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, actually, he started his mission, uh, first of all, to give the replies and response to those who raised objection against Islam, whether they were Christians or they were Hindus, or even some Muslims who converted to Christianity. And so this was the first thing. Second, what he actually his movement, which was much more a scholastic movement, he actually attracted Muslims of that time, and not just like I mean, when I say Muslim, that the people, like who had great knowledge, people who were knowledgeable, those who were highly educated, including Maulana Muhammad Ali, who became the founder of Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, who was at that time masters in English, and then not even Maulana Muhammad Ali, but even the political figure when we see is Dr. Iqbal and many other scholars, Maulana Nuruddin, who then he attracted like all the intelligentsia of Muslims at that time. And he asked them to come forward and they should come and serve Islam, because Islam, which was at then it was considered only a duty of the ulamas or mullahs, we can say, or it was considered the duty of only people who are going to the madrasas. He said no, it is duty of every Muslim, and not only just those who are going into the madrasas, but it should be the duty of the people who are educated, because they can understand Islam better and they can present it in a better way. And then the another important point, he started his own literary contribution. Now, literary contribution, he started writing books, and then there was a he started publishing the newspaper, which actually attracted the public. And it was when I say that it is Ahmadiyya movement was the most refined form of Islam which he presented, and it was that movement which was the prime aim of the movement was to present the true picture of Islam to the public, not only in subcontinent but worldwide. So this was the only movement which at that time, which it started, then its dawah was not limited only to any country, to any small place. Although Mirza Ghulam Ahmad lived in a small village himself, he was born there, but his mission and his movement, it was for that he even debated with the at that time when there was no media, when there it was we only printing press was there. He debated even with the people in America. He debated people with all of the other like the countries where, and he used to have then a debate with them and defended Islam. So what we can say that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was a defender of Islam, in a very like if I say only few words, he was a defender of Islam, and he was the one who actually conveyed the real teachings of Islam to the Muslims, and then also to those who were not Muslim, those who were not accepting Islam, or those who belong to different religions. So that was his main mission, which he came with.
Thank you.
Although it
Dr.
is a lot of
Noman Malik.
but I think then it will go on. So this just I just give a very brief summary. It can take a lot of time.
Thank you. Uh, Dr. Noman Malik, what all has the Ahmadiyya movement done for the cause of Islam?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. That is very difficult to capsulize in maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but I'll try my best to do that. First of all, the greatest benefit that Hazrat Mirza Sahib produced as far as the to Islam was that he, as the Mujaddid of the 14th century Hijrah, he removed all those misconceptions which had arisen in Islam due to the passage of time. So it is not that he changed Islam in any way, but he just removed those misconceptions. And at the same time, he presented Islam as a very rational and logical religion, which was actually suited for the modern mind. And hence, this was his mission. A part of the mission, or the great part of his mission, was to present Islam to the whole world. And he made Islam free of any defects. Now, the greatest defect, of course, in the eyes of outsiders was that Islam was a violent religion which preached the teachings of Islam actually at the point of the sword. And there were many other objections as well. So what Hazrat Mirza Sahib did, that he removed these misconceptions. He showed that actually in Islam, warfare is allowed only in self-defense. At the same time, he cleared up this idea of jihad by showing that the word jihad itself just meant struggle. And armed warfare in jihad could only be defensive warfare. Aggressive warfare in Islam is totally forbidden. But unfortunately, by the time of the 18th century or the 19th century rolls around, this idea that aggressive warfare against non-Muslim states to bring them under Muslim rule had actually become part of the Sharia of Islam. And hence, as a Mujaddid, he had to remove that misconception. But he didn't just say it by saying it, but he actually proved through the Holy Quran and the Hadith that the primary significance of jihad was that of a spiritual struggle against the self and a spiritual struggle with the Holy Quran. So, in this was his, I would say, his greatest achievement in getting rid of all this false propaganda which had built up around Islam. The other thing was, in other words, he also, and it is a related topic, was that he showed that death was not the punishment for apostasy, that no apostate had ever been killed by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And this was again a gradual accretion of events which brought about this to become part of the Sharia of Islam again. And this again, as Mujaddid, he brought about a reform of that. That he also showed that blasphemy, death was not the punishment for blasphemy at all. And again, he did it by proving it from the Holy Quran and the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And then, in addition to that, he proved that there was no abrogation of Quranic verses, which is very important, but because this was used frequently by the so-called, there is no clergy in Islam, but these religious leaders had become like a clergy at that point, and they used to use this tactic or technique of declaring something which obviously was not allowed by Islam, as saying that this particular verse has been abrogated. So this is another great service he did to Islam. Then he showed that actually the door to ijtihad was open. And the way to approach ijtihad was that primacy should be given to the Holy Quran, second should be the Hadith, and third should be the fiqh. So again, and then most of all also, that he proved that that God still communicated with man, because again, by the time this 19th century rolled around, this idea had taken hold among the Muslims that God did not reveal himself to human beings anymore. And he showed this was wrong again by the past history of Waliullahs, who had claimed again and again in their books that God communicated with them. But this communication was Wahi of Walayat. Prophetic revelation or Wahi and Nabuwat had ceased with the coming of the Holy Quran and with the Holy Prophet. And in addition to this, of course, he cleared up the fact that the Jesus Christ had actually died and he would not return. But this so-called hadith about the return of Jesus Christ were actually about somebody who would come in his spiritual power and be the Mujaddid. He also cleared up the subject of what the Dajjal was, what Gog and Magog was. So all these features which are actually of importance to Islam in this century, Hazrat Mirza Sahib made them clear. And I would say this was a rather short overview of what he did. He did much more than that. He also made arrangements to make sure that Islam was projected in the West. So for this, he actually started a magazine in English, and he also encouraged the translation of the Holy Quran as well into English, which was, of course, later on done some years later by Maulana Muhammad Ali.
Thank you. Imam Amir Aziz, why did Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad start a movement called Ahmadiyya movement?
Yeah, that is also again a misconception against many Muslims, especially in subcontinent, that many people they think that he gave this name Ahmadiyya on his own name. Well, this is absolutely not only wrong, rather it is just a misconception. And recently, this misconception has been removed by the ulamas themselves. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, when he gave this name, and maybe that even many Ahmadis used to think about it, why he gave this name, and they used to ask this question, why not to change the name? But now, many people, especially in Pakistan, the movement, it started against Ahmadiyya recently, and their leader came up on the stage and he said, "Don't ever say them Ahmadis. We are Ahmadis. They are Qadianis. They are Mirzais." Like, he's now they started realizing this thing, that what Mirza Ghulam Ahmad gave name to his movement was very interesting phenomena. While before that, all movement they started with the name of some person. For example, even the four school of thought in Islam, Fiqh Hanfi or Imam Malik, Malki or Shafi or Hanbali. So they were all given the name of the person, but when Mr. Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, now he never wanted actually to make a kind of a firqa. This is not a sect actually, which one must understand. At that time, there was a census, and in that census, it was compulsory to write down the name of of his own group or his own jamaat or his movement. So then at that time, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib said that he gave the name of Ahmadiyya, that on the name of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, other name is Ahmad. So therefore he said that the name of my group, of my party, or of my movement will be the Ahmadiyya movement. So this was name given on the name of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Why? Because he said Prophet Muhammad, and then he explained a very interesting thing also, that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, two names have two qualities. One is the Prophet, the name Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam name is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is in Urdu he used the word Jalal. That at that time it was needed to take sword in his hand and even to fight against those who were fighting against the Muslims. But the second name Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which was given to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by his mother, that is in Urdu he used the word Jamali name, which means it has a beauty, or which means the name which is actually to explain things with love, and to explain the teachings with arguments. So therefore, he said, now it is the time, as Dr. Noman Sahib has clarified, that he said that now it is not the time of jihad, what people have misconception of fighting, but it is the time to have a scholastic jihad, or the jihad with the pen, or it is that time that we have to now come forward with the knowledge. It is the time of knowledge. So therefore, he said this Ahmad name of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam actually reflects his this aspect of knowledge and of peace with the love. So therefore, he gave this name Ahmadiyya on the name of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And unfortunately, before, like, now I told you that recently many ulamas in Pakistan have started claiming this thing. Don't call them Ahmadis. They are not Ahmadis. We are Ahmadis. So this means that what Mirza Ulama gave the name was a what he had actually. It is a kind of a prophetic name given to him by God Himself, that he should give this name to his movement. That even now the people who are against, they are saying. And I recall one of the incident, that one very famous lawyer. I don't want to quote him here, because then he will be in the problem with Pakistan. He came to our head office at that time, and he wanted to have the book of Maulana Muhammad Ali, which is the religion of Islam. Obviously, the religion of Islam, it was considered at that time as a book of not only just for Ahmadis. Right now, people, they don't know about this book, but at that time it was considered encyclopedia of Islam. And he asked that he wanted to have this book. My father was sitting there. He said, "Are you an Ahmadi?" And he said that, dear, that I am not only I am Ahmadi, but every person who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is an Ahmadi. So then, like me, that these people who were those who knew what Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib has given this name, they always appreciated it. And now even the enemy, those who are against Mirza Sahib, they started claiming themselves the Ahmadis, because it is the only movement in Islam. If you will see throughout all other movements, that they have been given name on the person. They started their movement. Maybe, as I've just pointed out, for a school of thought, but there are other movements in Islam which started in the name of their own founder. But it was the only movement which was given on the name of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ahmadiyya. So that is why he gave this name Ahmadiyya to the movement, to the Ahmadiyya movement.
Thank you. Uh, Dr. Naman, why is the movement more known in the West?
This movement by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, as I said before, and as Imam Amr Aziz has said, that the time was now coming for Islam to spread throughout the world as a dominant religion. This, of course, was not in the sense of victory for victory's sake, but actually it was for the survival of mankind itself. Because unless this current era in which there is so much national hatred, ethnic hatreds, a fierce competition for material resources, if this does not come to an end, then we do have the weapons actually to destroy civilization as we know it. And hence, it is most essential that the peaceful and uniting message of Islam be delivered to all peoples of the world, but especially those of the West, because they are at the present time actually the one could say the material or the temporal masters of the world. So for this reason, Hazrat Mirza Sahib actually right in the late 1890s he began a magazine which was called the Review of Religions in English. That was his idea to present the beautiful thoughts and the teachings of Islam to the West. And of course, Maulana Muhammad Ali was the editor of that magazine. In addition to that, as I said before, he wanted the uh, translation of the Quran into English, but many articles by Hazrat Mirza Sahib were present in the magazine and were very much liked by the people in the West, including the likes of Tolstoy, who wrote a very appreciative review on his teachings of Islam. For this also, in actually the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement took the lead in then establishing centers in the West. The first one was established in the first decade of the 20th century by Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahib, one of the leaders of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement. And then a mosque was built in Berlin. And the two magazines came out from actually these two centers. One was the Islamic Review from Woking and the Muslimish Review from the Berlin Mosque. And these produced a sea change actually in the thinking of the Westerners towards Islam. Khwaja Kamaluddin made a great impact on the European public. Not only that, but he also toured the rest of the world too, going as far as South Africa and Southeast Asia. And everywhere he was welcomed as a great fighter for Islam. So these are the reasons why the the Islam is so the movement is so well known in Islam. In America, of course, it was greatly accepted by the people there, especially the American blacks. And the Holy Quran of Maulana Muhammad Ali was one of the books which was really, I would say, instrumental in bringing many black Americans into Islam. So much so that before World War II, there was a very active correspondence with European countries, like Hungary, for instance, and especially in Muslim Albania, where actually people were sent by the Muslim organizations from Albania to study in Ahmadiyya buildings at the time when Maulana Muhammad Ali was still alive. So and many of the books actually of Maulana Muhammad Ali were translated independently by Europeans into their own languages. So again, it's this international outlook of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and the need he felt for the propagation of Islam, which makes Islam so well known in Europe and the Western world.
Thank you so much. Imam Amir Aziz, if you could reflect on the life and the work of the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad.
Yeah. Although it is once again, it needs a lot of time, but I'll just, as I have started already, stated that His first book, which was which he wrote, which became very popular, was Barhain Ahmadiyya. So this book actually was, as I have already said, that many people they commented about it, and his Muhammad Hussain Batalvi said that no one has ever written such a book in last 1400 years to defend Islam. So that was his prime aim, to defend Islam and to explain the teachings of Islam. And then he wrote more than, if we calculate all his books, whether they are some small, some are in a huge volume. So there are more than 80 books which he wrote about the different topics. One can also find these books on our website and can read it. But the most important point of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, which he clarified to Muslims first of all, as Dr. Noman Saib he also pointed out, this is a very small booklet of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. One can easily read. It is just 30, 40 pages. It is about in Urdu. Its name is Mobile Review Bar Mubaisa Batalvi wa Chatralvi. So this is a small booklet. Now, this booklet, in that he has pointed out that what should be the Muslim thought, which nowadays people are following, like scholar like Javed Ahmad Gandhi Sahib, they're all following the same, exactly the same thought which he has given in that book. And he said, in I advise my movement, my members of my Jamaat. So, like he actually advised Ahmadi that in all matters of life, wherever they are come across any problem, they should first of all consult Quran, and whatever the solution is given in the Holy Quran, they should accept it. The second is, if they don't find any clear injunctions from the Holy Quran, then they should go to the Sunnah of the Prophet. Now, this is actually, he also, this the word Sunnah he gave, because first people used to say the Quran and Hadith. He said that it's not only first, on the first point we have to consult Quran. Second is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, which is the action of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And if you don't find a clear instruction, then you go for the Hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And if you don't, then you go for the then you go for the ijma of the ijma, which means the consensus of Muslims. And if not, then you should find it in the, you should follow the fiqh Hanafi, which is actually he said to his own followers that they should follow fiqh Hanafi at that time Mirza Sahib said. And even if you don't find anything in fiqh Hanafi, then you should have your own ijtihad, which means that now you can influence yourself. So this here he opened the door of ijtihad, which was actually closed for many years. And now many people, if you will listen on the media, mostly people they say Allama Iqbal was the first person who actually gave this concept of ijtihad. While Mirza Sahib, many years before Allama Iqbal, he said that ijtihad is that he asked his own followers to go for ijtihad, and if you don't find anything, then you have to use your own mind and your own intellect, and people then they should come forward with a solution of the problem. So in this way, he gave this idea. And at that time, Mirza Sahib not only just like he was, fighting on many fronts. He was at the same time refuting the objection raised against Islam by the opponents, and at the same time he was clarifying all the misconceptions which was by the Muslims themselves, and especially as Dr. Saib has also pointed out the concept of jihad. And he wrote again a very small booklet. Once again, I'm not talking about his books, which are of many pages. People would not even read, but the small booklets they can read. This is known as Government Angrezi of Jihad in Urdu, and in English it has been translated in English, Government English Government and Jihad. And in that book, actually, he clarified exactly what the concept of jihad, as Dr. Saib has pointed out. And the most interesting point in that book, he pointed out the areas also, specific areas where the people they have this misconception of jihad. And he wrote to at that time it used to be the Amir of Afghanistan, and he wrote to him that in and the tribal areas of Pakistan. He said that you should clarify this misconcept of jihad amongst these people. And he asked, and he not only just he suggested Amir that he should print the books in Pashto and spread these books in these areas, because he said if people will not understand this concept of jihad, they will bring destruction not only for the Muslim but for the whole world. And how prophetic he was at that time, that this his word proved true 100%. That Amir of Afghanistan didn't listen to him, other people they didn't listen, and now when we see the whole world, it focused on these areas, tribal areas of Pakistan and also the other Afghanistan, and then we see what bloodshed it went on in it happened in that country. On the name of Afghanistan war, what happened during Russia's attack on Afghanistan, and then later on now what is going on, we see all this. So he clarified that misconception and pointed out also where the disease lies. So he said that, and I would like that people, those who, and because of this, his clarification of jihad, many people they have objection against Ahmadis and against Mirza Sahib, that he actually has given a fatwa that that jihad is no more valid. So this was absolutely wrong. He never said that jihad is no more valid. He actually clarified what jihad is. He said it is the defensive war. When some other country has aggression on the Muslim countries or in other countries, then you have the right yourself to defend yourself. So he said that jihad is only a defense, and that defense nowadays is much more needed much more needed in the holistically than in the field of, and then also pointed out where the problem is. So that is also his one of the main contribution to this Muslim Ummah, which although they don't accept, unfortunately, and that's why we see what happened with it. Then the most and another important thing which Mirza Sahib at that time started, we see that he established a school in his own village where he was, and he asked the intelligentsia of Muslims to come to these schools, and they should learn religion of Islam and also the modern all other modern subjects like English language and whatever they could learn. And this became so like attractive point for the intelligentsia that Ilama Iqbal. Now people they say that Ilama Iqbal nothing to do with it with Ahmadiyya movement, but he sent his own son to this school. So this can like this reflects those, because many people or all scholars in Islam, in especially in Pakistan, India, they believe Ilama Iqbal as a reformer of this of 20th century, and they say he was the scholar who has actually given awareness to the Muslim, and he sent his son to Qadian to this school that he should go and study there. So this was actually the main, this was the contribution given. This was a contribution by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, and then another important point which actually he asked his own followers that they should that Islam is not restricted only to the like to the clergy, not only to the only ulama, and he asked everybody that they should come forward, they should learn Islam, and they should practice, and everybody should become a muballigh of Islam. It's not only just the duty of few people. And then in, this was the situation that Ahmadis used to even the Ahmadis who were not scholars, they used to debate even with the Christians at that time, and used to clarify the concept of the true teachings of Islam to the people. And then he made this organization on a very strong footing of knowledge. That it is the time of knowledge, and they should come they should seek knowledge, and then they should present the true teachings of Islam to the rest of the world. And there's a lot of other, like I've asked that I've explained that it takes a lot of time, and if we would go on, then it will be difficult to finish this program. So these are only few points I have pointed out. There can be many more where he started this movement. And unfortunately, although we don't say that the Ahmadiyya movement, the whole movement later on, it has a split and whatever, that is a different story that also we can discuss later on. But this is his contribution toward Islam.
Thank you. Dr. Naman Malik, what is the movement currently doing for the cause of Islam?
See, the best way that we can remove the misconceptions of about Islam in today's educated world is by presenting them with good literature about Islam. This actually was written by Hazrat Mirza Sahib himself in his book Izala Oham. And Maulana Muhammad Ali, who was the founder of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, on his deathbed, he actually said that our job, our work is to take the Quran into the world. After that, the Quran will do its own work. So, with this in mind, our movement has always been very active in sending literature out. But especially in this present time, I would say, the the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishat Islam Lahore, USA, was actually asked by the late Amir Dr. Saeed Ahmad to take this in hand and to publish our books. And this has been done, and this has been largely spearheaded by Mrs. Samina Malik, my wife. And she has done an excellent job of not only printing all the books which were out of print, but also of making translations into different languages. The printing is of a very high quality, which is needed for distribution in Western countries. Now, we have actually translated and printed the Quran in German, French, Italian, Chinese, Hebrew, Turkish, Russian, Spanish, and Portuguese. The Dutch Quran has also been printed, as well as the footnotes of Maulana Muhammad Ali's Holy Quran, English Holy Quran, have been translated into Arabic. So this is a large reservoir of literature which we have and which we give out, mostly free to outside countries. And here we are very thankful to a few members that we have who sacrifice their wealth in order for this to take place. Lately, we have sent almost 42,000 copies of the French Holy Quran to West Africa. We have sent 70,000 copies to Russia, 10,000 copies to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. 6,000 copies were sent to all libraries in university libraries, local town libraries, and Islamic Studies Department in India. 1,000 copies were sent to all the libraries in Australia, 3,000 copies to Germany, libraries in Germany, and 5,000 copies of the Holy Quran and Religion of Islam in the United States. So that's a lot of literature which is going out, and inshallah it will bear fruit. The Sixteen Jamaat has also been very active and has translated a large corpus of our literature into Dutch. So in addition to that, of course, like all our other sister organizations, we have utilized the internet to present our message. And most of our books, as on the other sites, are available for free download. In addition, we have given lectures and held conventions on various topics in countries about Islam and the Ahmadiyya movement in Turkey, Egypt, South Africa, Philippines, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, and Ghana, to mention a few. We also try to establish Jamaats outside because we like to have local help in spreading the literature, and we have done so in the Philippines. And one of our important ways that we work is we work with local organizations who share our view of Islam. And hence in Egypt, for instance, we work with Sheikh Ala Abu Al-Azim Zaim, and he is the leader of a Sufi organization there. And he has distributed tens of thousands of our books, including the Arabic books of Hazrat Mirza Sahib in Egypt. At the same time, there is a Sufi Sheikh in Bilal in Mali. He is the one who is now spearheading actually the distribution of the French Holy Quran in West Africa. He wants to make that the premier Quran translation in the whole of West Africa. So these are, some of the ways that we try to spread the teachings of Islam in these countries. We also try to remove, of course, misconceptions about the Ahmadiyya movement, as Imam Ahmad Aziz has said too. And one more thing I would like to mention, which I forgot in my first answer, just one short sentence, that
Sure.
that Hazrat Mirza Sahib gave the ideal way that these differences between the Muslims could stop. There has never been more bloodletting of Muslim on Muslim violence in this century than at any other time in the Muslim world. And this is again due to foolish differences about the minutest things in the application actually of the jurisprudence part of Islam. We have one Quran, one Prophet, same concept of hell, same idea of heaven. Everything is the same. But yet the fighting is on such small matters, again, unfortunately, due to our religious leaders, many of whom have failed in their task to bring unity. Hazrat Mirza Sahib provides the answer in one simple short statement. He says that anyone who says the kalama, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, is a Muslim, period. After that, there may be differences, but you cannot take anybody out of Islam who pronounces the kalma. Only when a person renounces Islam, renounces the kalma, then he gets out of Islam. Otherwise, nobody, no organization, no council of ulama has been given the right to take anybody, any Muslim out of Islam, except the repudiation of the kalma by that person himself.
Thank you. Um, Imam Amir Aziz, what is Ahmadiyyat all about?
So we can say that if I just summarize it, that Ahmadiyya the is the that purest form of Islamic teachings to present to the world, and also the Ahmadiyya movement. If we say it is that how people how we can present the real teachings of Islam not only to the Muslims themselves but also to those who do not believe in Islam. And the main aim of Ahmadiyya movement is actually to bring peace among the world while taking the peaceful teachings to the people. So it is, how can peace prevail in the world when we clarify to the people, to the world, that what the real teachings of Islam are, and that the real teachings of Islam mean peace and love for the humanity. And once we clarify this concept to the people, then it means that we bring the whole humanity together. And also, as Dr. Saib has pointed out, this is very important point, that only one point can unite Muslims, and that is Kalma La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. If we do not respect this statement, then it means there will be no ending of throwing people out of the pale of Islam, and that we have seen. That it's not only that which is happening with the Ahmadiyya movement in Pakistan or in some countries, we say only like officially in Pakistan, but then it will happen with everybody. That then you can keep. But so Ahmadiyya movement in it is a scholastic movement which main and the prime aim is to bring humanity closer through the literature, through the teaching of presenting true teachings of Islam to the people, because the only unifying force in this world now is Islam. Because we should realize one point, that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been mentioned in the Holy Quran, "Wa arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alamin," that, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have sent you as a mercy for the whole humanity, for rahmatan lil alamin, for everybody. So once we make it clear to the people that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his teachings are this mercy for everybody, then it means that we are bringing the whole humanity to that point where they will have unity, and where they will start respecting each other religion. And like if you will see that how much the prophet how much love Mirza Ghulam Ahmad he had from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he even gave this option to the Hindus, because at that time Muslim and the Hindus, they were living together. And nowadays we see what is atrocities going on in India with the Muslim, on only in the name of slaughtering the cow. He wrote a book which is in Urdu, which is Pegam-e Sulh, a message of peace. This is also in English. One can read it in English. In that, he is asked that if Hindus, they do not abuse our holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they start, if they stop abusing Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they will not have objection on his life, I would ask my followers to stop eating cow. Like, he went to that much that he said that I will order my organization, they should not eat cow because this is a sacred animal for the Prophet. So, like, he went that to that extent to only for presenting Islam and to defending the true teachings of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In that, he asked that I would announce it. And surely, at this point, we even say that even if today the Hindu, they don't abuse the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they want to come closer, we can even do it today, that we have that unity where we can show that, okay, we start respecting that what the founder of movement has said. So that was actually, we can say only few words, that this was Ahmadiyya movement.
Thank you. Uh, Dr. Noman Malik, the Muslim world reveres all the reformers until the 13th century. Why did they not accept the 14th century reformer Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad despite of his great service to Islam?
The question actually makes a statement itself, which is really not completely true as such. For one thing, Muslims may now respect them, but one must remember that several hundred years ago, many of these persons who were living at that time were actually abused by the Muslims themselves. They were called kafirs at that time. So this calling of kafirs or trying to say bad things about reformers is a well-known fact. This happened to all the prophets of Allah Ta'ala. There were always people who used to try to destroy them and, to say things about them which were not true. And so it has been in Islam too, especially in the latter times. We all, for instance, follow the most of the Muslim world, I would say, the Sunni part of it, follows the jurisprudence system of Sheikh Abu Hanifa. But he himself was persecuted during his lifetime, and unfortunately, I have to shake my head in disbelief, and I cannot repeat what was done to his gravesite. It's a matter of shame for the Muslims if they were to find out. And now, of course, he is one of the most respected Imams. Same way, Imam Malik was tortured, beaten, lashed, and finally his death was caused by the injuries that he suffered during imprisonment. So this is nothing new. The only problem is that the detractors of Hazrat Mirza Sahib are just now in political power, and any attempt to correct the record, to rectify the record, is of course met with force. For instance, in Pakistan, we cannot try to publish anything which would clear Hazrat Mirza Sahib's name in this respect. There is an element which is present in Hazrat Mirza, associated with Hazrat Mirza Sahib, and that is the wrong assumption that he claimed to be a prophet after the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He never claimed to be a prophet after the Holy Prophet Muhammad. His 80 books are filled with writings where he denies all this. And the word prophet was used by him in some of his writings, as was used by all the other great awliya Allahs before him. This is not something new he was doing, number one. And number two, in some of his ilhams also, the word Nabi does occur. But he was always very careful to put down at that particular point that this is only in the metaphorical sense, or it is only in the vocabulary sense that this word is being used and not. He went even so far as to say that if anybody's feelings are hurt by the use or the presence of the word Nabi in my writing, he should cross that out and put instead the word Muhaddas. So what he was a muhaddas, that God used to speak to him as he spoke to the previous, awliya Allah. In fact, the Holy Prophet Muhammad himself said that among the people of the previous prophets, there used to be people to whom God used to speak and they were not prophets. And if there is one in my ummah, it is Hazrat Umar. So, so this has been present there right from the very beginning. The non-prophetic revelation was available to Islam, and actually is one of the greatest arguments that Islam is a true religion, because it is still always and always will be capable of having a mankind or those men communicate with Allah Ta'ala. But I will just end then, whatever the present day retractors may say, but what is important to see is what did the people say who were the contemporaries of Hazrat Mirza Sahib. The obituaries which I have a whole, this is the amount of the book which is full of the obituaries about Hazrat Mirza Sahib, and I will just read by the likes, like for instance of Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. He was a great Muslim scholar and a Muslim divine as well. And he said, the literature, this is a long, obituary, so I'm just reading a very small part of it out. The literature produced by Mirza Sahib in his confrontation with the Christian and the Aryas has received the seal of general approval. And for this distinction, he needs no introduction. We have to acknowledge the value and the greatness of this literature from the bottom of our hearts. Now it has done its work. This is because that time cannot be forgotten nor effaced from the mind when Islam was besieged by attacks on all sides, and the Muslims who had been entrusted with the defense of Islam by the real defender, that is Allah Ta'ala, as the means of defense in this world of causes and means, were lying flat, sobbing in the aftermath of their shortcomings, describing our mullahs, doing nothing for Islam or not being able to do it. Then began the counterattack from the other side of the Muslims, in which Hazrat Mirza Sahib had a part. That defense not only shattered to bits the initial influence of Christianity, which it really had due to the support from the government, and saved thousands, nay, millions of Muslims from this dangerous attack which would have succeeded, but the talisman of Christianity itself was blown away like smoke. And then finally he says, he has left behind him as a memorial such literature as will last so long as Muslims have blood flowing in their veins and the urge to support Islam after their prominent national characteristic. So this is what a non-Ahmadi scholar has to say. Just one short one again. Maulvi Bashiruddin, of the editor of Sadiqul Akhbar, Sadiqul Akhbar in the UP province, writes in the obituary, as Hazrat Mirza Sahib, with his forceful speeches and magnificent writings, shattered the foul criticism of the opponents of Islam, silencing them forever and proving that truth is after all truth. And he left no stone unturned in the service of Islam by championing its cause to the full justice requires that one should condole the sudden and untimely death of such a resolute defender of Islam, helper of the Muslims, and an eminent and irrepressible scholar. The poet philosopher of Pakistan, Iqbal, he also said that Hazrat Mirza Sahib was actually written in the Indian Antiquary magazine, was the greatest Muslim theologian of the 20th century, of the 19th century. So just a few. So we are not worried about this. Truth is the truth. The Holy Quran says that when truth and falsehood come to face each other, then truth will bash out its brains. And the truth, the falsehood is like the spider's web in Al-Ankabut. When the truth comes to it, that web will be just taken away with one finger, you can destroy that. And inshallah, what we need at the present time is for our like-minded Muslim friends to take our literature about Hazrat Mirza Sahib and to spread it, and we in the meantime must try our best to get this literature through the internet, through books, through whatever, into the hands of Muslims, so that this misconception can be removed and then the real status of Hazrat Mirza Sahib as the Mujaddid of the 14th century and as Masih Maud and as the Mahdi can be recognized. Uh, so I'll end my answer with that.
Thank you so much. Uh, so quickly, we have few questions. So there's one question. Worldwide, Lahori Ahmadi population is just 30,000. Imam Amir Aziz. I mean, I'm not getting whether it's a statement or a question.
That doesn't make any difference whether it is only few people. In the Holy Quran, God says, "Qalilan ibadi shakirun," that those people who are grateful to Almighty Allah, they are few people. So that the number of people never matters in any part of the world, because even it is the 30,000, it is 300,000, or it is 3 billion. It doesn't make any difference. There are billions of Muslims in the world, but what they are doing for the sake of Islam. So it doesn't make any difference. So I mean, we are only just small part of amongst Muslims. We should just realize one point that the Ahmadiyya movement is a Muslim and Islamic movement, which is actually to present Islam to the people. So it doesn't make difference whether the only 10,000 people come with us or it is only 10 people come with us. Our mission is to take forward the message of Islam and message of Quran to the people. That is what our mission is. So it doesn't make any difference whether it is 3,000, 30,000, or 300,000. First of all. Secondly, as Dr. Noman Sahib has pointed out two of the things that, and the comments of some of the scholars, Dr. Iqbal said that if you want to see Islam alive today, then see Qadian. In Urdu, he said, अगर इस्लाम आज जिंदा देखना चाहते हो तो कादियान जाकर देखो. This I am not pointing out. This is Dr. Israr Ahmed, who was a very great scholar. He pointed out this statement of Iqbal, that if you want to see the real faith of Islam, go and see in Qadian. That was what was the contribution of Mirza Sahib. As far as your question you asked, that why people they don't accept it. So I recall Hafiz Sher Muhammad Sahib, who was a great scholar of Lahore Ahmadiyya movement and died. So he said that we had one court case in Africa where where Ahmadis they won that court case, and he said that the judge asked me in the end that Hafiz Sher Muhammad, this was a very small issue which I was able to understand in these hearings. Why your Muslim they have not been able to understand for so many years have passed by. So he gave a very crafty reply. It was very interesting. He said that, sir, they don't want to understand. You wanted to understand and you understood it. They don't want to understand. Once they want to understand, they should come to us and ask us what we believe. But unfortunately, they have closed their ears, they have closed their eyes. They don't want to listen to us what we say. Whether we claim Mirza Ghulam Ahmad as a prophet or not. If we claim, then it's okay. Then we should be blamed. But they don't want to listen. They don't want to understand. Once people they would try to understand, they would understand it. So that is, and obviously, the time will come when people would realize it is, as I have said, that only just one word Ahmadiyya. Now people have started saying that we are Ahmadis. Don't call them Ahmadis. The time will come; they will accept the other truth also.
Yes, and I may add to
Thank you
that
so
that the Holy Quran also says that how many times has a small force defeated a large force. So numbers don't count in that way. So we must all remember that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, that peace and blessing be upon him, started in the minority of one. The people who were at Mecca were just a little bit more than 100. The people at Badr who went to fight were only, again, just a bit more over 100. And yet the final victory, of course, was that of Islam, because that is what conquered actually the kuffar. It was the words of the written Quran and the words of the living Quran, which was the Holy Prophet himself. And as Maulana Muhammad Ali said that, if you, as Hazrat Aisha said that, if you want to see the morals of the Holy Prophet, look at the Holy Quran. And Maulana Muhammad Ali added that if you want to see the Holy Quran, look at the morals of the Holy Prophet. So this is what we have to present, and this is what we are doing. And inshallah, numbers really don't count, especially in this present day and age when with a click of a button you can reach millions of people. So numbers are irrelevant.
Thank you. Since we are running really short of time, Imam Amir Aziz, there are a few questions. Maybe Dr. Numan Malik, if you also add to it. So there's one on Mujaddid. Maybe our brother doesn't seem to have consensus with us on what Uncle Numan said in an answer about Mujaddid. He just mentioned, though it's a huge topic, I think we would need more time to discuss it, as well as the topic of jihad. So, and there's another one. Is ittikaf jaiz compulsory without roza? And ittikaf is not wajib. I hope I'm pronouncing it fine. Well,
Yeah, etikaf. Yeah, actually, I think that's somebody asked about etikaf. Is it somebody is not, for
oh, it's
example,
ittikaf.
fasting is not fasting, then
Okay.
should we have etikaf or not? So, there are two things which we should keep in mind. One is that etikaf is that in the last 10 days when we are fasting, then we should go, the people, they go in the mosque, they sit there, and then they seclude themselves from the worldly affairs. So in case somebody, for example, is not fasting, then it is not compulsory for that person, because obviously he is already sick. So for compulsory person, it is not compulsory for him a fasting. How can the etikaf be compulsory for him? Because fasting is the five amongst the five pillars of Islam. Basic five pillars of Islam are fasting, not etikaf, and then. Um, but if somebody who has, for example, chronic disease, for example, diabetes or a heart problem where he cannot fast at all, and then he wants to do etikaf during this Ramadan, then he can do it, no problem. It will be it has no problem at all. He can do etikaf there. He can, like, it will be just 10 days that he would seclude himself from the worldly affairs, will sit in the mosque, will have time to read and to get closeness to Allah, so he can do it, no problem. But most important, it is not actually the compulsory which we have here. It is not obligatory, but it is just optional. If somebody wants to have it, they can do it, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think, Dr. Daman, if you could quickly throw some light on the concept of Mujaddid just in a few
Yes.
minutes so that we take the remaining questions in the next session. Yeah.
Yes, the concept of mujaddid actually is very well recognized in Islam. That it's not a novel concept; it's an old concept. It is traced back actually to a hadith of the Holy Prophet himself in Abu Dawud, where it said that at the head of every century, Allah Ta'ala will raise from the Muslims one among them who will renew their religion or purify their religion, not add to it or subtract to it. And many Muslim scholars of great repute have written about this hadith, and there's a consensus among Muslims that the concept of mujaddid is correct. And these names are actually the names of the mujaddids have been put down in these books, and these books are freely available. And what was the second question?
Second question is on jihad. So the person is again making, I don't know, it's a statement. You can't understand concept of jihad. So
He doesn't
I think
agree with
it's
he doesn't agree with the concept of jihad, or what? If it
I
is
don't know.
not an
See,
agreement, then of course, all this can be is actually one should read something about it. That is the only way one can get a satisfactory answer. I would strongly recommend The Religion of Islam by Maulana Muhammad Ali is freely available. You can go to any of our websites. You can go to muslim.org, you can go to aaiil.org, you can go to ahmadiyya.org. If you speak some other language like Dutch, you can go to the websites. And all these websites contain excellent material on these subjects. And I would strongly advise anyone who has any questions to go to our websites, because there all the answers will be provided. And if they have any questions, they can email us, and we shall be happy to provide them with answers as well, many times with free books too. So that is the best way to approach this concept. By the way, this concept of jihad, which was given by Hazrat Mirza Sahib, is now universally accepted by every Muslim in the world. Some of them, of course, have been forced to accept it at the point of the sword, actually, the Western sword. But at least outwardly, they have to say that this is the right conception of jihad. Inwardly, only Allah Ta'ala knows best. But this is the concept of jihad is exactly the same as Hazrat Mirza Sahib said it was.
And
Thank you.
um,
Yeah.
I would just like, as brother Dr. Noman Sahib has pointed out, that's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is hadith which says, "Inna Allah yabasu lihazil ummati ala rasi kulli bi'atin sanatim ma yujaddidu laha dinaha." So this he has pointed out that the Prophet ﷺ said that God would raise a person amongst the Muslim Ummah at the end of every century who would reform the religion of Islam. Which means that whatever there will be some misconception, he would remove those misconceptions. So this was actually the concept of Mujaddid. And obviously, in the list of Mujaddid, Umar bin Abdul Aziz was the first person considered as a Mujaddid in that list. Yes, somebody pointed out correctly here that Umar bin Abdul Aziz, yes, he was the first considered first Mujaddid because he was the one who reformed a lot. And then there is a long list which one can later on pointed out. And Mirza Sahib was also among the same list of Mujaddid. He was never claimed to be a prophet. That should be everybody should be sure about it.
So, thank you so much, Dr. Noman Malik and Imam Amir Aziz, for joining us today. And I'm sure that our viewers might have been enlightened about the very basic and key aspects about the Ahmadiyyat, which shall definitely guide all the seekers of truth in understanding what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam stood for. As the topic is very vast and we cannot do justice to this topic in a single session, we shall be holding more sessions on this subject so that the thirst of the truth seekers and the unbiased learners is quenched thoroughly in this behalf. Thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Allah Hafiz.
Nah.